What's up guys, YGO Luna here. I'm going to show you guys one of my favorite decks of all time, the Endymion deck. It's fantastic, it sets up turn 1 negates, and it's so much fun to play. It's an Endymion deck, just pure Endymion build with mythical beasts. They synergize incredibly well. Let's get right into it. So first thing is we got the three big boys, the Endymion, the mighty master of magic. So he negates spells and trap activations by bringing a card from a spell counter on the field back to the hand, and he gains the counters. So it's negated and destroyed, and he has an amazing effect of when he's in the scale, he can remove 6 counters from anywhere on the field and special summon himself and pop cards on the field according to the number of cards that you can put a spell counter on. And so it's literally like just an atomic bomb that you drop on your opponent. It's fantastic. It comes up all the time, especially in pure Endymions when you're focusing on spell counters. So this guy is a definite 3 of. He's a great scale. He's a scale 8. He's a level 7. So you can special summon, you can pendulum summon him from the hand. You know, even by having him in scale, he's fantastic. So 3 is a must-have in a pure Endymion build. So next up, we have 3 Servant. So Servant has some interesting effects. So turn 1 or turn 2, you're racing to get to the Servant. The Servant special summons a card that you can put a spell counter on from the deck to the field. So it's fantastic for turboing out Electromite. The monster effect comes up rarely. You discard a card to put spell counters on all the Pendulum or all the spell counter cards on the field. And when she's destroyed as a monster, she can scale herself, and you put the same number of counters that were on her when she was destroyed. So 3 of, definitely one of the best cards in the deck. Now Magister has a similar effect to Servant, whereas with Servant you remove 3 counters to special summon from the deck. Magister, you remove 3 counters to special summon from the extra deck. Now, that is a little limiting because you have to have an open link arrow, but it's not a problem because it comes up often. He's also fantastic to be bringing to your hand from the effect of Endymion, the Mighty Master of Magic. So if he has 1 counter and I negate a spell and trap, I can bring this back to my hand. He gets the counters, then I can just rescale and put a counter on, you know, on some of the spells and some of the other monsters. Now, he has an interesting monster effect. When he attacks, he actually gets a spell counter, and during the opponent's turn, his effect is awesome. That's when he can special summon from the deck, and he can special summon any monster from the deck that you can put a spell counter on, which includes the mythical beasts. So that means on your opponent's turn, he summons you out a negate. He's fantastic. So he's a really good card. He's a good 8 scale. The deck has a lot of 8 scales. Servant being the best low scale at a 2. And Magister being awesome in the scale. So, alright, so these are the Endymion lineups. Now we're going to head into the Mythical Beast package. So 3 Master Cerberus, he's fantastic. He searches out any Mythical Beast in the deck. Now all you have to do is scale and destroy itself in order to search your deck for it. Now if he gets ashed, it's a catastrophe, but it's not the end of the world, because what ends up happening is all the rest of your monsters, you can use the low scale to your advantage. I mean, 4 isn't the lowest scale in the world, but a majority of your deck, you're wanting to bring out all your negates, like the Endymion Master Magic, he's level 7. The Jackal King, which I'm about to show you guys, he's level 6. You know, he's awesome to... It's not the end of the world, you know, like, you can still make really good plays even if he's stuck in the scale. Now, his effect as a monster comes out quite often, actually. So, whenever there's 4 spell counters on the field, he actually can't be destroyed. Can't be destroyed. And it also comes up where he can remove 1 monster on the field from play, by removing 4 spell counters anywhere on your field. So if I'm going turn 2 and I turbo him out, then I could just remove one of my opponent's monsters, and he gains that attack until the end of the next turn. So it's a fantastic effect. You can even OTK with this. You know, it's a really good monster. And a lot of the times, if I'm not using him to OTK my opponent, then what I'm doing is I'm linking him off for Electromite, like using him to turbo him out, or I'm just searching for some of the other mythical beasts. But 3 is a must-have in this Endymion deck. Also, he collects 2 counters as a monster every time a spell is activated. So 3 is a must-have in this deck. Next up, we got Garuda, mythical beast Garuda. Now, I'm running it at 2 because at 3 was a little cloggy, but 2 is perfect. Since he can be searched out with Master Cerberus, it comes up often. And in today's metagame, you know, you're having to deal with things like Mystic Mind Burn. You're dealing with Sky Strikers. You know, destroying this in the scale helps you pop a back row, a spell and trap on the field. So it really comes in handy to pop that Mystic Mind, to pop that, you know, those Orcust or PK traps. He just comes up in almost every duel. Maybe not Danger Thunder, so, you know, you side him out. But in your hand, he has an interesting effect. It's a hand trap, basically. You remove 3 counters from the field, and it basically brings that monster back into the opponent's hand. Now, if you're using this on a Pendulum summon, like let's say you're playing a Pendulum player, using that effect will mean that the entire Pendulum summon gets brought back. For example, Machine Duplication, special summon 2 Cyber Dragons. If it's multiple monsters, it's a special summon. So that means that you can pop their entire special summon. Not pop, but, you know, return to the hand. So, mythical beast Garuda, he's fantastic. It's an excellent addition to the deck. Now we have your 3 Jackal King. Now, I see a lot of people running 2 in things like Pendulum Magicians, but in Endymion decks, this is a 3 of. It's fantastic. Now, it's a 6-star monster, and its scale is 4. That means that if Jackal King is stuck in the scale, and you have another 8 scale, you could still special summon your Jackal Kings, your Endymions, from wherever, from your hand or from your extra deck. So him getting stuck in the scale is not a big deal. Now, he is a monster negate. When he's a monster, he can remove 2 spell counters from anywhere on the field to negate and destroy a monster effect. So that's fantastic. When a spell card is activated, he gets 2 spell counters. And when he's in the scale, what happens is when there's nothing else in the other scale, and by the way, all of these mythical beasts, their pendulum effects only activate when there is no other card in the scale besides itself. So it's a little limiting, and you got to plan ahead because of that limitation. But if you keep it in mind, you know, it's never an issue. Now, I use this to turbo out Electromite. So if you have Beastmaster Cerberus, you scale it, you pop itself, and you grab this to your hand, you scale this, you pop it, now you have a free special summon from your extra deck, okay? So this is a free body on board. You know, he's a negate, he special summons monsters, he's fantastic. 3 of in this deck that's focused just on spell counters. Now we have some engine cards. So we have Time Gazer Magician, only because of Chronograph Sorcerer. Now, Chronograph Sorcerer is amazing in this deck. He's an 8 scale, so even that really comes up all the time. Now, he's another turbo card. He basically special summons out Time Gazer Magician, either to as a monster or in the scale. Now, as a scale, it's not all that bad, because in the scale, if there's not another magician, he turns into a scale 4. Now, as we mentioned earlier, scale 4s, it's not a big deal. All our monsters are big, heavy, you know, 6 stars, 7 stars. So, you know, we don't want to be, you know, stuck with, you know, anything higher, like, You know, all the scales, they're all synergistic in this deck. So even Time Gazer has his place. You know, he gets a lot of hate, but in this deck, even his monster effect comes in handy sometimes. Or worst case, he's just a normal summon. If you end up drawing him, you just normal summon to get rid of him and, you know, get your Electromite a little bit faster. The other engine we use is Supreme King Dragon Darkworm. Now, he's fantastic. He's a +1, he's a +2. You know, he's always putting in work. He's a dark dragon. Since he's a dragon, he comes up all the time with the guard dragons. Lets you special summon from the deck. You know, he's a level 4. You know, he's a 5 scale. 5 is, you know, it's not the best scale, but all we need to special summon out is 6 and 7 star monsters. So even 5 scale, it's not the end of the world. It's not preferable, of course, but, you know, since he's a level 4, you can do link plays. Since he's a dragon, you can do guard dragon plays. He's awesome. He's an awesome addition to the deck. He's a fantastic turbo card, and I would not cut him. And of course the gate 0, because every time he gets normal special summon, you can add a gate 0 from the deck to the hand. And so we just run 1. And the other card we're running is Amorphous Goliath. Now, Goliath, he has his uses. Goliath can be specialed out with Guard Dragon LP, special summons from the deck. He can be special summoned with Chronograph Sorcerer. Since we're running so many of the mythical beasts, when they activate their pendulum effects, they destroy themselves. And that triggers the effect of Chronograph Sorcerer. This Chronograph Sorcerer special summons himself from the hand, and he can special summon a monster from the hand. And so it comes up where sometimes you just want to special summon Goliath. It's an instant, you know, it's an instant big body on board. Goliath is awesome because he can't get run over by the likes of Pankratops, a very common and popular side deck card. His scale being 5, it's not the worst thing, you know, but it's definitely not the best thing either. This might turn into a Morphage Sloth because it's just another 6 star instead of an 8 star. And an 8 star, you can't exactly pendulum summon him because we're running scale 8 and lower. So, you know, being an 8 star, you can't really pendulum summon him. So it's a little limiting, but I do love that high attack. So this might get replaced in the future. Let's move on to that extra deck. So the goal of this deck is just to pump out negates and floodgates like this guy. Now the extra deck is a massive toolbox, and maybe every game I would go into 1 or 2 of the extra deck monsters, but the win condition is literally inside the main deck. It's just every single turn it's like 2 to 5 negates. So that really whittles down your opponent. And so the extra deck has, you know, OTK stuff. It has a lot of resource intensive things, and it's really just kind of last minute stuff, you know, to get you out of certain situations. Now Electromite, he's the best card in Pendulum decks. He gives you 2 arrows, 2 Pendulum monsters, very generic. You know, the goal of the deck is just to get to Electromite as quick as possible and then set up a bunch of negates. Not much to explain there. Beat Cop from the Underworld, this is a relatively new addition because I've been playing against Mystic Mind burn decks. And so the Ojama tokens can actually get linked out because this only requires 2 monsters. And you have 2 awesome arrows pointing down. It also has an effect if you use 2 darks to link it, but it rarely comes up. Now, Carnegorgon, Anti-Luminescent Knight. Now, I put this in because of Sky Strikers. You know, being rank 4, I can use the Dark Worms in order to bring him out. But he's coming up less and less because as soon as you bring out this guy against Sky Strikers, you know, it's basically over. Negate spell and traps. Can't be targeted or destroyed when he has a counter, you know, and in the scale he just destroys everything. So, you know, this might get cut. Nightmare Phoenix, This comes up sometimes. It's just a monster negate, two monsters with different names. I can also use it to link out the Ojama tokens in, you know, the worst case scenario if I'm playing Mystic Mine. And, you know, I just got to figure out a way to out Mystic Mine. Mystic Mine, by the way, doesn't stand a chance against this deck. Because Endymion himself, if he's up here, if he's a monster, then he can negate spell and traps. It's wonderful. But he's actually more beneficial in the scale. And if you collect 6 counters, you can pop so many cards. So, like against Mystic Mine, it's all about Endymion. Now I'm running Starving Venom Fusion, and this is because we're running Super Poly in the side deck. This is awesome, and this is really in there because of Thunder Dragons. Danger Thunder Dragons are very scary. I think this deck has a hard time with it, especially going second against Danger Thunder is probably the worst matchup. Going first, you know, it's not a big deal because you can set up floodgates and negates, you know. Obviously, you're going to be focusing on monster negates when you're playing that deck. No, this is just the best target, you know. Odd Eyes Absolute. Now, if my board has multiple Endymion, the Master of Magic, then what I'm probably going to end up doing is linking out you know, exceeding out into Odd Eyes Absolute, and then going into an Ib play. Now, this comes up all the time. You know, you definitely want to be running Odd Eyes Absolute. You know, your level 7s aren't just the level 7 Endymion, but the level 7 Gate 0 that Darkworm searches out for you. Ib, the World Chalice Priestess. This comes up all the time too. It's basically 2 monsters with different types and attributes. So Water Dragon, you know, Dark Spellcaster, you know, that's one example. So this comes up all the time. It protects your monsters. You know, if you're using Odd Eyes Absolute as a link material with Ib, then you get to special out this guy, Odd Eyes Vortex. So this gets special summoned, you know, right next to Ib. So Odd Eyes Vortex Dragon, it's an Omni negate. It's fantastic. And when it's special summoned, you get to put a card from your opponent's side of the field back to their hand. Whirl Sword, this is an OTK. It's fantastic. It's got 2 fantastic arrows. You know, there's even Guard Dragon plays. You know, as long as you have a Darkworm in this, you know, you can special summon into LP and then bring out your Sloth, your Goliath. It just wins games. It's fantastic. Every time I see this guy, it's over. Burrow Load, this is for Danger Thunder. You know, I've never ever summoned this, but I just feel like it's a good spot. You know, if this is supposed to be a toolbox, it's there in case I need it. Abyss Dweller, in case, like, let's say I'm using Pot of Desires, I banish, you know, my Goliath, my Sloth, whatever it is. You know, I'll default to Abyss Dweller. He's awesome. You know, it really helps out against Salamangrates. It helps out against Danger Thunder. Sky Striker, it would be on Sky Striker Ace Ray. You know, you gotta have Abyss Dweller. It just combats so many decks this meta. I'm running this guy because people are sleeping on this card. This card is fantastic. You know, 2 level 6 monsters, right? So it comes up a lot when I have, you know, a useless monster on the field like Chronograph Sorcerer. On the field, you know, this guy, he doesn't put in any work. So I want to get rid of him. I want to link him out. I want to use him as Exceed material. So one of my options is this guy. What he does is he actually sends cards to the graveyard. And on top of that, he's got another effect where if a card was sent to the graveyard, you know, by any means, like battle or even his effect, then I could special summon 1 monster from the opponent's graveyard into my side of the field. And he's a 26 body. You know, he just wrecks. You know, as soon as he comes out, it's like, you know, I'm just dismantling your board little by little. I'm gaining advantage. So people are sleeping on this card. I think he's, you know, he's so amazing. It's one of the best cards. And he's a zombie. Comes up. Supreme King Dragon Dark Rebellion. He wins games on his own too. He's like Boral Sword. So 2 level 4 darks. So Darkworm all day, every day, right? So he gains attack according to whoever he's attacking. and he makes the other monster's attack 0. So OTK, you know, I don't know how many people have OTK just with that one card. Naruto, because as I said, I end up sometimes with chronograph sorcerers that are just useless on my field. So what am I going to do with this guy? I'm going to try and turn him into a negate with Naruto. Now, these two are the level 6 exceeds. Now, one is to prevent spell and traps, and one is just to wreck boards. So this is before they make their board, this is after they make the board. And so they both do come up sometimes. I feel like Naruto comes up more than the Sheridan. Zephyr Metaltron. Now, if my Electromite has been Effect Veilered, if it's been, you know, if I can't get an Endymion out on the field, most of the time people are going to target the Electromite because it's the most valuable card that a Pendulum player can have on their field. So what I do is I just get rid of it, you know. If I can't find a way to do a Guard Dragon play, you know, let's say I have one Dark Worm, I have Electromite, and I got another monster. You know, let's say it was a terrible draw. You know, maybe I bricked, maybe I got hand trapped into Oblivion. So what I'll do is I'll get rid of Electromite and link something else off, and then use LP. First I'll summon this, then I'll put Dark Worm and link LP, and then special summon a Floodgate in the form of Goliath from my deck. So he comes in handy a lot. When a monster is destroyed under him, I actually get a monster from my graveyard or from my extra deck. So I can even recycle Electromite because he's in the grave. Or I can get a combo piece in the form of a Pendulum monster. He's awesome. He's definitely worth running. Only one of the Guard Dragons. This is really the only one we need. Guard Dragon LP. Guard Dragon LP just special summons from the deck, but I'm locked into special summoning dragons. So next turn, you know, I could sacrifice, you know, I can get rid of him in different ways, you know, but he's really just to special summon now this guy, Goliath. So it's definitely worth it to run. Okay, let's do spells. So this is the Citadel lineup. 2 Citadel and 1 Terraforming. The reason I'm not running 2 of this, 3 of this, is because at this ratio is perfect, at least for me. And the reason is because I love seeing this, but I don't need to see this. You know, it's handy to have, and this searches out one of the 2. And I don't have this deck doesn't have a reliable way to discard cards from the hand, like dead cards. So I definitely don't want to be clogging on multiples of these or multiples of the Terraforming. Since we also run Pot of Desires, we definitely don't want to, you know, remove from play, like, you know, any combination removing from play of that is catastrophic. You know, we definitely don't want to deal with breaking. So that just helps with consistency. So we run the 2 Shrine and the 1 Foolish. This is to send the Dark Worm. If I see these cards, then I'm basically getting a +2, right? Or a +1, I guess. I'm activating any of these, sending Dark Worm, special summoning Dark Worm, and I'm adding a gate 0. So I'm already netting a positive. I'm getting a free monster on board to help me get closer to the Electromite. Running these are fantastic. Also, if I'm done with my play, then I'll activate this last, so that way, well, if I'm able to, I'll activate them, so that way I can put counters on everything, spell counters. So if I'm ending with an Omni board, you know, Jackal Kings and Endymions, you know, this guy, I'm just putting counters on everything. So running this ratio has worked really well for me. We run the 3 Desires. 3 Desires is definitely needed. This is a combo deck. You need combo pieces at all times. You need as many combo pieces as possible. You know, draw into stuff. You know, you want to try, you know, you want to keep pushing through all the hand traps, all the bullshit that you end up dealing with. You know, it gives me counters. It gives me a +1. And, you know, it's always a risk banishing, you know, your one-ofs. But that's why you try and use as many of your one-ofs as possible, like You know, I'll get out Chronograph before I activate this. I'll special summon, you know, Dark Worm before I activate this, so that way I can get my gate 0, my +1. You know, it's never an issue running 3. It's definitely worth it. You know, we run 3 Called by the Graves because we love our plays going through. This is a combo deck. You know, it's very important that your plays go through, especially when they're most vulnerable. When you're building your board, you definitely don't want to get stopped by Ghost Ogre, you know, Ash. You know, it really sucks. So with all the hand traps in today's current metagame, 3 Called by the Grave, in my opinion, has helped me so much. And it's definitely worth it. 3 Spell Power Mastery. This searches out any Endymion from your deck, and it puts 1 spell counter on a card that you can put a spell counter on. It's once per turn. And if you're activating one, then you know the next turn, if you activate another one, you actually can put 2 spell counters because it counts the number of spell power masteries that are in your grave, or spell power grasps, which we're not running because it's not hasn't worked out well. It's just very cloggy, so you know we don't want cloggy cards. So this is a definite 3 of. And we run the 1 Upstart Goblin. It replaces itself, it gives you a draw. It's definitely worth running. It just puts spell counters on everything. You draw into more combo pieces. It's a great card to side out, you know, so you can put in your Denkoseka, you know, your other stuff, your you know, some of your side deck cards. And that's it for the main deck. Okay, now we're going to get into the side deck. Now, my side deck strategy is it's broken down into what I'm trying to fight against. So, for example, if I'm playing Mystic Mine, if I'm playing Altergeist, if I'm playing something that's back row heavy, I'm gonna side in the back row heavy, you know, the back row hate. MST over Twin Twister. You know, this has worked out better for me, this card. Because, you know, it gives me counters. There's no, you know, if it gets negated, like Twin Twister, if it gets negated, I had to discard a card. You know, I don't like losing combo pieces. I don't like discarding cards. So, MST works fantastic. Denkoseka is the MVP of the side deck. It's just like, it wins games on its own. Just summon it, it's over. You know, Salamangreats, Orcust, Altergeist, any back row deck, this is it. This is the best card. DD Crow, you're one of DD Crow. It doesn't negate effects in the grave, but it's handy in case, like, Salamangreats, they send Spinny, boom, remove the Spinny. If they send an Orcust, boom, remove the Orcust before they have a chance to activate. As soon as you jump the gun on this, you know, it works pretty well. Prankertops, he's awesome too. He's a level 7, so he can be Pendulum summoned. You know, this is one of the best cards in the side deck. You know, it's so affordable. It's such a good card. It's, you know, special summon it, run something over, pop it to destroy a floodgate or something. It's a +1. It's awesome. It's always good to have one of those. Now we're running the Super Polys. Super Poly coming to 2 is fantastic. And really, I'm siding this against Danger Thunder. You know how they make those crazy ass boards? Well, this is just a perfect out. And we're only running 1 of the Starving Venoms. That's really all we need, to be honest. If I only want to see it once, you know. If I draw 1, then I can use it and just destroy my opponent's board. Usually, actually, I only side this in going second. And if I see 2 of these in my opening hand going second, then I'll just send the 1. Send the 1 Super Poly. So my thinking is I really only need 1 target for 2 Super Polys. And then the 2 Lava Golems. These really come in handy, actually. You know, people would be surprised. You know, those boards with Orcust, for example, with Galatea, with Dingirsu, with the Rusty, it really sucks to deal with those cards. So, you know, get rid of them. Lava Golem, they lose 1,000 on their standby phase. It's awesome, you know. I could even use it as a, you know, I could use it as, you know, so many things. Okay, well, anyways, that's the deck, guys. Hope you enjoyed that deck profile. See ya.